Buddham saranam gacchami.
Welcome to West Virginia Meditation Society's meditation hall. This is where we meditate every day. Bhavana residents and visitors during retreats and out of retreats. I like to speak on meditation itself, especially the basic fundamental meditation principles and practical instructions I like to give. Meditation is a very vast subject. It is a core practice, the heart of the Buddha's teaching. It is through the practice of meditation that we cleanse our mind, purify our mind of all kinds of psychic irritants. We want to overcome grief, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair. We want to follow a right path which leads to one direction, to one goal. That goal is liberating ourselves from pain and suffering. This meditation has very special place in our life. In order to practice meditation, meditators should know at least the basic principles of meditation, how they meditate, and therefore my suggestions today are very practical. When you want to meditate, there are various ways of meditating. We can meditate while sitting, standing, walking, lying down. We can meditate practically every waking moment. And that is the kind of meditation that we can incorporate into our daily life. We don't consider meditation something that we should do only sitting on a cushion in one place for a short period of time, occasionally, once a while. Meditation is something that we must practice every day, just like we breathe, eat and rest, drink and so forth. Only then can meditation becomes really meaningful, beneficial to our life. And this meditation therefore is called insight meditation. Insight, sometimes people think inside. In fact, even if they say it is inside, that also is not incorrect, because it always brings us into ourselves. We meditate on things that are really directly related to our daily life. Our main subject of meditation is ourselves, nothing from outside. We carry everything we want within us, in our daily life. Living daily life is carrying on this body and mind in a certain way. we always either think, talk, or act physically. Meditation is something that disciplines our thoughts, words, and deeds. It is through the thoughts, words, and deeds that we express our experiences. Meditation directly cleanses the mind, because through the meditation, when we cleanse the mind, our thoughts, words, deeds are clear, pure, and we can make our life more relaxed, peaceful, and comfortable. All the source of our greed, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and so forth come from our mental states. Therefore, we have to clean the mind to say things and think things and act things. If we say or do something with unclear, impure state of mind, the results follow us like a cart that follows the foot of the ox that pulls the cart. I like to elaborate a little bit this simile of cart pulled by a bull. The bull or an ox that pulls the cart doesn't pull it with pleasure and joy. He has no escape. Once he is tied to the yoke or the cart, he has to pull it. He is trapped. His master sitting on the cart is not a very compassionate person. He is very cruel. He wants to get his job done as quickly as possible. And the cart that this ox pulls is not an empty cart. It is full of merchandise. It is heavy. The road that he pulls the cart is also not a very smooth, paved, carpeted road. It is a rugged road, not very straight. It is winding, not only going directly. It has ups and downs, potholes, and so forth. That is the road he has to pull this cart. And he doesn't do it with pleasure and joy. It is very heavy. Similarly, our life becomes very heavy, and the road we have to travel is not very smooth. Especially when the mind is full of numerous psychic irritants, everything that we do makes life very difficult. On the other hand, when the mind is clear, pure, simple, free from numerous psychic irritants, the mind is very light. In fact, with such a state of mind, when we do things, say things, and think things, all of them become very light. And the results of them follow us like our own shadow. We even don't feel the weight of our shadow. When the mind is totally free from numerous psychic irritants, that state of mind is called enlightened. Enlightened means two things. It is not heavy. It has brightness, clarity, and purity. And this is the goal of meditation. So we have to follow a procedure, a method, a system. That procedure is extremely simple if we understand. If you do not understand, it is very complicated. This simple system of practice of meditation begins with simple objects. That object is our own breathing. All meditations we begin with using our breath as an object. We sit in a certain comfortable posture when we do sitting meditation. As I said, we can meditate in any posture, so long as we breathe, so long as we use the breath as an object of meditation. Posture itself is not that important. However, if we want to meditate sitting in one place, we start using our breath as an object. We select the breath as an object of meditation for many good reasons. One, the breath is very simple, it is always present, it is transportable, it doesn't belong to any particular religion, culture, tradition, geographical area. There is no confusion with regard to the breath, because we all breathe. All living, even non-living, animate and inanimate, all things breathe. The whole universe has one rhythm, expanding and contracting. The breath represents that rhythm. As we breathe in and out, we experience expansion and contraction of our lungs, of our chest, of our body. This is universal phenomenon, and therefore we start our meditation with this universal phenomenon as an object and focus the mind on the breathing. And also, breath is always present. In our meditation of what we call insight meditation, we use the breath because we want to use an object which is always present. We want to focus our mind on the present object, not on the object that is past or that is going to come in future. And when we focus our mind on the breathing, we don't focus the past breath or future breath, but the breath that we breathe in and out every moment. When we focus the mind on the breath that goes in and out, we simply become aware of that breathing process. Breath goes in and comes out. Once the breath goes in, the lungs absorbs its oxygen, and the breath with carbon dioxide comes out. We don't know this, but we experience only the breath going in and coming out. And then we pay attention to it. We don't go into all these other inner intricate things, but we simply become aware of this very simple breathing process. Inside intricacies can be understood later on when the mind becomes clear and pure and concentrated. So we first pay total, undivided, mindful attention to the breathing. When we say mindful attention, sometimes people might wonder what mindful attention is. In fact, in our insight meditation, among many components, attention is an extremely important component. We don't understand anything if we do not pay attention to it. Only through the attention, mind becomes aware of what is happening. And therefore paying attention is extremely important. That attention also has to be undivided attention. However, in addition to this undivided attention, there is another part that we have to keep in mind. That is mindful attention. So what is mindful undivided attention? Mindful attention is the attention without any assumption, presumption, and preconceived notion. No greed, no hatred, no delusion, no judgment. We let the mind be like a mirror for objects to reflect in it. When we use a mirror, all we do is let the object reflect in it. Similarly, when we pay mindful attention, we make our mind just like a mirror. No judgment, no preconceived notions, no criticizing, no analyzing, but simply let the breath reflect in our mind. Breath cannot reflect in our mind because you cannot see the breath, nor can you analyze it, the breath. All you can do is to feel the breath. The mind feels the breath. Mind feels the breath going in and coming out. And then we keep paying attention to this simple breath going in and out. Then what happens? When we breathe in, when the lungs are full, our inhaling cuts off. So we become mindful of that. And then after that, there will be a very brief, extremely brief pause. Then exhaling begins. We become aware of the beginning of exhaling. And then we become aware of the breath coming out through the nostrils. And still again we keep paying total attention to that feeling, that of breath coming out of our lungs through the nostrils. That is the whole exhaling, breathing part. And then when there is no more breath in our lungs, exhaling cuts off. So we become aware of it. And after a very brief pause, inhaling begins. And we become aware of that inhaling, the beginning of inhaling. And then breath continues to flow into the lungs through the nostrils. That is the middle of inhaling. We become aware of it. Again, when the lungs are full, that inhaling cuts off. We become aware of it, and after a very brief pause, exhaling begins. This is what is called paying mindful attention to every part of our breathing. So until we pay attention to our breathing process, we don't know the beginning of inhaling, middle of inhaling, and end of inhaling. Nor do we know the beginning of exhaling, middle of exhaling, end of exhaling. And there are also something else we notice when we pay mindful attention to the breathing. That is, when we breathe in, when the lungs are full, there is a very tiny, minute little degree of tension in our lungs. As we breathe out, that tension is slowly released. When the tension is released and breath is gone out of our lungs, there will not be any more breath in the lungs, and then we experience very tiny little anxiety for not having breath in our lungs. Then we breathe in. As we breathe in, that anxiety of not having breath in lungs slowly fades away. Now this tension, relief of tension, anxiety, relief of anxiety also cannot be noticed, cannot be known. We don't become aware of it until we pay attention to it. So as we pay attention to the breathing, we become fully aware of the total breathing process, not only inhaling, exhaling, but the beginning, middle, and end of inhaling and exhaling, and the tension, relief of tension, anxiety, relief of anxiety. And then, when we keep paying attention to these occurrences, these events, these moments of breathing, we also realize something very important, that is extremely important in our mindfulness meditation practice. That is, when the lungs are full, tension arises, there is no way to stop that tension. It arises as soon as the lungs are full. And the feeling of tension also arises by itself. There is no way to stop it. That is not comfortable. When the tension is released, we feel, we experience something very beautiful, comfortable, and we like it. We want to hold on to it. And there is, however, there is no way to stop that tension disappearing and the pleasant experience disappearing. Both tension and relief of tension are equally changing. Similarly, when the mind is free from anxiety, there arises a desire for the freedom of anxiety, and that we like very much. Unfortunately, that does not stay there. It fades away, disappears. There is no way to stop it. Now we understand, whenever we try to hold on to anything beautiful, pleasant, peaceful, that very thing slips away from our grip. We try to hold on to it. The moment we try to hold on to it, it slips away from us. And this is a very natural occurrence that takes place all the time with regard to everything that we like or even dislike. So, in a very simple, fundamental way, we understand the true nature of our own experiences. This is how we begin our practice of insight meditation, by noticing, realizing, paying attention to our breath, which is marked with this universal phenomenon. What is that mark? That breath is impermanent. The feeling that arises together with the breath is impermanent. Our perception is impermanent. The attention, the thought that arises with regard to the breath, feeling, perception also is impermanent. And consciousness is impermanent. Now these are what we call aggregates. Our breath is one aggregate called aggregate of feeling, aggregate of the body. Then there is a feeling of the breath that is called feeling aggregate. Then we have mental perception of the breath and the feeling, that is our perception aggregate. Then the thought or attention that we pay to the breath is another part of another aggregate, and then consciousness is another aggregate. In reality, we are made up of these aggregates. So becoming mindful of them and their changes, impermanent nature, is our central theme of this practice. Why do we want to do that? When we pay attention to them and when we become aware of their impermanence, what kind of insight do we gain? That is the important thing. Insight that we gain is this life is life experience. Any experience in this life is impermanent. Why do we want to understand impermanence? Because impermanence is so fundamental, so universal, it exists forever. In other words, everything is marked with impermanent. Impermanence is permanently impermanent. If somebody asks you what is permanent, permanent is impermanence. Things are permanently impermanent. And once we understand that, we don't get upset when we grow old, when things change, when our pleasure disappears, when pain arises, when we are sick, when our relationships breaks up, and so forth. Whenever changes take place, small or great, we don't get upset, we won't be disappointed, we rather accept it, understand it, take it and go along with it. No matter how hard we try to fight impermanence, you cannot make impermanent permanent. And that is, that's one thing we understand. Whenever we cannot fight something, we join it. If you cannot fight, join. Joining that you cannot fight makes things very easy, especially when things are slipping away from our attempt of gripping, holding on to. When it is fading away, disappearing, then we accept it, we go along with it, and we relax, we feel comfortable. We actually feel very glad that we understood this reality. Once we understand the reality, that is the way to relief of tension, anxiety, worry, fear, and so forth. So all the psychic irritants builds up because of our not understanding of this reality. So the theme of the goal of this meditation is to open our mind to understand things exactly as they are. Things here means our body, feeling, perception, thought and consciousness. We must understand them as they are. Only then can we make our life peaceful and happy and reach our goal of liberating ourselves from pain and suffering. That for that goal, to achieve that goal, we practice vipassana meditation. I hope you all enjoy this. I hope you enjoy this practice in a very real sense of enjoyment, that is gaining peace and comfort.